Advanced Design VMware vSphere 7. X exam. 3V0-21.21 is associated with VCAP-DCV Design 2021 certification. We collected real 3V0-21.21 dumps questions to ensure you can pass Advanced Design VMware vSphere 7. X exam in the first try. Real 3V0-21.21 dumps questions have 60 Q&As. You need to read all the Q&As carefully. Which two statements are true about gathering functional business and application requirements? Choose 2. A. It focuses on functional requirements with C-level stakeholders. B. It leverages a single set of question no.s for all stakeholders. C. It might require multiple rounds of stakeholder interviews. D. It builds stakeholder consensus. E. It is a non-iterative process. Answer. A. C. An architect is designing a new vSphere environment to meet the following requirements. The environment must support 5,000 virtual machines. The environment will be built initially using 350 hosts. Which vCenter server appliance deployment size should the architect specify for the design? A. Large. B. Small. C. Tiny. D. Medium. Answer. A. A customer requires the use of data encryption to ensure data is not accessible when a drive is removed from the primary storage platform. However, there is also a requirement to use deduplication and compression against all workloads in order to conserve space. Which solution meets the customer requirements? A. Data in transit encryption. B. OS-level encryption. C. Encrypted backups. D. Array-based encryption. Answer. D. An architect is designing a new vSphere environment with the following resources: 600 vCPU, 5,760 GB RAM. Average resource usage is 60 vCPU, 1,152 GB RAM. The design must meet the following requirements. The environment has the ability to burst by 25%. Each host can schedule 36 vCPUs and has 512 GB RAM. Management overhead is 20%. What is the minimum number of hosts required to meet the design requirements? A. 3. B. 5. C. 4. D. 2. Answer. D. A cloud service provider wants to introduce backup as a service for a customer's vSphere-based virtual machines. The following information is noted. They have a single 4-port, 2x10 GBE and 2x1 GBE, NIC per ESXi host. All top-of-rack, TOR, switches are 10 GBE and fully populated. The backup traffic must not impact existing services. Which 2 recommendations should the architect make to help the customer incorporate the service? Choose 2. A. Enable and tag traffic on the backup distributed port group. B. Add a new 2-port 10 GBE NIC per ESXi host. C. Replace the existing NIC with a 2-port 25 GBE NIC per ESXi host. D. Match the class of service, CUS, and differentiated services code point, DSCP, values to the physical network. E. Create a new virtual switch using the 1 GBE uplinks. Answer. A, B. An architect is tasked with planning the design of a new vSphere environment. When commissioned, this environment will be used to migrate an existing set of virtual machines. An inventory of the existing infrastructure, including configured vCPU, RAM and storage sizes, has been provided. In order for each virtual machine to be migrated, which 2 data sources with peak and average utilization data are required for sizing? Choose 2. A. % ready. B. Disk write latency. C. CPU. D. Ballooned memory. E. IOPS. Answer. B. E. During a requirements gathering workshop, the customer's Chief Information Security Office, CISO, provides the following requirements that are pertinent to the design of a new vSphere environment. All operating system critical patches must be installed within 24 hours of release. All virtual machine templates must be updated every 3 months in line with company policy. Which requirement classification is being gathered for the design documentation? A. Security. B. Manageability. C. Recoverability. D. Availability. Answer. B. An architect is designing a new VMware software-defined data center, SDDC, that will consist of 100 branch sites connected to a single VMware vCenter server within the primary data center. To allow for the use of existing automation scripts, there is a requirement to replicate the names of the virtual distributed port groups across all sites. The procurement team purchases licensing and there is no further budget allocated. Which design decision should the architect make to meet this requirement? A. A new vCenter server will be deployed for each branch site. B. A new host and cluster folder will be created for each branch site. C. The automation script will be updated to reflect unique naming for each site. D. A new virtual data center will be created for each branch site. Answer. B. An architect will be taking over control of a former Linux server fleet and repurposing the hardware into a new vSphere cluster. The current environment is already connected to the network, but the hosts do not have any local disks. Since the fleet hardware is uniform, the architect can use a single ESXi image. All hosts within the cluster have the same CPU and memory capacity. Which ESXi deployment method should the architect use? A. Stateless cached vSphere auto deploy. B. Stateless vSphere auto deploy. C. Manual install of each ESXi host with an image from USB. D. Stateful vSphere auto deploy. Answer: A. Following a company merger, there are two data centers running vSphere environments. Both data centers are leveraging separate Layer 3 vMotion networks. Which requirement must be met in order to enable vMotion migration between these locations? A. The vMotion service must be configured on the management VM kernel adapter. B. A dedicated TCP/IP stack for vMotion with a dedicated gateway must be configured. C. A stretched vMotion network must be configured between data centers. D. Virtual machines must be powered off in order to migrate them between data centers. Answer: B.